You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
Before this podcast kicks off, let's talk about goals. The Greatest Goal is a native tree crowdfunding campaign, leaving a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-hosts of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree for a brighter future.
Football Fever with News Talk ZB's voice of football, Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
Kia ora, hello, welcome into Football Fever with treesthatcount.co.nz. This is your daily World Cup podcast. I'm Jason Pine with New Zealand Herald football writer Bonnie Jansen, as always alongside. It is the World Cup that just keeps on giving and giving and giving. Last night in Brisbane, England 0, Nigeria 0. England eventually going through 4-2 on penalties. A massive scare for the European champions. But the big talking point was this.
The yellow card for number 7 white is cancelled. Instead, red card for Malek.
Red card for Lauren James, the star of England's final group game against China PR. How fortunes can change quickly.
A moment of madness, Bonnie, from Lauren James, 6 minutes from the end of regulation time, stamping on Michelle Alusi's back after she lost possession. What was she thinking?
Yeah, it was just so silly of Lauren James, and she's been so key for England at this World Cup. But as soon as the replay was happening, you just knew they were going to overturn it. There was no way she was getting out of that with a yellow card. And yeah, I mean, I don't think it's been ruled yet if she'll miss the rest of the tournament, but it's looking pretty likely.
Well, that is the question now around it, and we'll talk more about the incident in a moment, is the ban that she will get. Obviously a red card. Any red card, you get a one-match automatic ban, but this was for violent conduct, a straight red card. She could be looking at a 3-game ban. That would end her tournament.
It would end her tournament, and she's so young, but such a talent and a real key player for England. So it's just a stupid thing to do, and she wouldn't have thought in the moment, no doubt. And, you know, now the whole tournament is on the line. Like, it's a risk for her and also her country.
You could kind of see it coming, eh? She was getting frustrated. Nigeria were kind of niggling away at her and little snipey little tackles. And I actually get the feeling that Serena Wiegman, the England coach, was going to substitute her about 10 minutes before that. And maybe, I don't know, in hindsight, you can never excuse what Lauren James did, but in hindsight, maybe the coach needs to read that situation a bit better and get her out of there while she's being kind of niggled by the Nigerian players. But even so, straight away, comparisons were made, and you're far too young to remember this, with David Beckham's red card in the 1998 men's quarterfinal against Argentina. He kicked out at Diego Simeone, kind of a little petulant little kick. He got a red card for that. Lauren James, I mean, I think she might want to stay away from social media, but she'll be feeling she'll just be so distraught, I'm sure, with what has happened here. Is it just one of those where human beings sometimes just do inexplicable things?
Yeah, it is. And I think it helps the situation. I believe the Nigerian player has kind of said, I'm fine. It was the heat of the moment, and hasn't been too upset by Lauren James. And that's the thing. It could have been anyone. And I'm not excusing what Lauren James did, but it certainly is the heat of the moment. And those matches mean so much for these players. And for that to be the first straight red of the tournament, and we're already so deep into it, I mean, it's not good, but we've come this far, and it was bound to happen at some point, and it wasn't too dangerous, which is good, and no one's injured and no one's hurt, but
it was almost
not good.
I looked at Michelle Alusi's face. It was almost like surprise. Like, what's happened? What's she done? She's just trodden on me. It wasn't violent conduct. When you say, if you said, okay, Lauren James has been sent off for violent conduct, and you hadn't seen the incident, automatically you think, okay, well, she's punched somebody or she's headbutted someone. Nothing like that.
No, exactly. And it's hard to tell through a screen, but it didn't look like it really hurt as well. And again, I'm not excusing what Lauren James has done, but it's just the heat of the moment. And that photo I think you're talking about is a great shot of the player in Nigeria, the Nigerian players on the ground. She's kind of just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, what's just happened? It's just so bizarre. Serena Wiegman, the England coach, said afterwards in the press conference there was no malice involved.
I think in a split second she just lost her emotions, and of course she doesn't want to hurt anyone. She's the sweetest person I know. Things happen like that and you can't change it anymore. So it's a huge lesson for her to learn.
A big lesson to learn. So we wait for her ban now. As I say, 3 games would end her tournament, and that is standard for violent conduct. On the game itself, I actually thought Nigeria played better against 11 than they did against 10. It was almost like when they went down to 10 England, Nigeria didn't kind of know what to do. It's like it changes the dynamic of the game. When you're playing against 10 players, you're kind of expected to, to outplay them. I don't think they really did in extra time. And then after extra time, when the whistle went, Nigeria looked defeated then to me, like, we haven't been able to take advantage of this one player advantage. I just thought before the penalty shootout, they looked like they were already defeated.
Yeah, I agree, but also England, you could see just the way they were, the sitting off and almost parking the bus. Like any turnover England got, they just weren't really doing much with it. And that's hard to break down, from a Nigerian perspective. But they were a great opponent, and it was a great match, like the night before with the England-Sweden game. And, not to make it about me again, but I did say to you, Piney, that yesterday that, England will come out on top, but Nigeria will make it tough. And their current FIFA ranking does not represent their ability. I think they're 44 in the world or something like that. And they should, they're knocking on the door of top 10.
Yeah, I think you take the piece of paper that's got the world rankings on it at a World Cup and you just kind of discard it. Don't you? You just throw it in the bin because it means absolutely nothing. Nigeria, look, they were good value. They hit the crossbar a couple of times. They had a good shout for a penalty, I thought, waved away. VAR didn't even look at it. England, though, had a penalty awarded in the first half, and then VAR alerted the referee that maybe she might want to have a look at it, and she said, OK, I've had a look at it, it's not a penalty. Kira Walsh was back. I didn't think we'd see her again.
Oh, I know. I thought the same. She's come off with a knee injury, suspected ACL, stretchered off, wasn't she? And then she's back playing the full 120 minutes. It was insane. But she's a great player for England, so that's huge having her back, especially losing the likes of Lauren James now for the quarterfinal.
Just on the penalty shootout, I thought England's professionalism really showed in extra time, and you talked about it there. They sat back, they knew what to do, they soaked it up. They've kind of been here before. I don't know if you noticed, but when they lined up for penalties, you get into your huddles, after the full-time whistle goes at the end of extra time, you get in your huddles and you decide who's taking them, and then the players go out into the centre circle. England got out there first so that they would have the position closer to their own benches. And during the penalty shootout, they just seemed like they were edging a bit further forward than Nigeria. The body language of the English players during the shootout, even when Georgia Stanway missed the first one, it just felt like they knew that they were going to be okay. Nigeria probably haven't been in this situation many times before.
Yeah, and you can compare that to the night before with the shootout between the States and Sweden. I agree with you. England looked very confident. They were always winning this match, and good on them for showing that professionalism. And luckily for them, they didn't have an opponent probably as experienced in penalty shootouts like, the States and Sweden were. So yeah, they were lucky to escape that match, but good on them for doing so.
Did you see that last penalty, Chloe Kelly's one? She's just absolutely buried it in the top corner.
Yeah, but what's the hop step
before?
I'm not sure.
I didn't like that. The end result. I mean, she can do what she likes. She can do the dozy do going up to the ball.
Get the ball in the net.
Just get it in the top corner. Can we though? Can we? Can I just put out a plea? Can we stop calling penalty shootouts if we go to PKs? Have you heard that being said by people? Oh,
yeah.
Even Tony Gustafsson, the Australian coach, said it the other day. Yeah, we've prepared if we have to go to PKs. It's a terrible,
Yeah,
it's a terrible
lame.
phrase.
Yeah, no, it is lame. But I was really impressed with Chloe Kelly last night. She came on towards the end and then she scored that final penalty. She's such an icon for this England team, and she scored that winning goal in the Euros last year. Everyone will probably remember that shot where she ripped her shirt off. But as soon as she scored that final goal last night, rather than going and celebrating with her team, she went and consoled the Nigerian keeper and kind of shooed away the camera people from filming her as she was upset. So yeah, Chloe Kelly's such a legend in the game, and yeah, I mean, England have a great squad, and I'm excited to see them go far, especially now that the States are out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was very classy. You're right, from Chloe Kelly. England await the winner of Colombia against Jamaica tonight. Nigeria go out, but they can be proud. A 0-0 draw with Canada, the Olympic champions. They beat Australia 3-2, the only team in the tournament to beat Australia so far. They drew with Ireland and then went out to England on penalties. I think, as you say, Bonnie, they will be rocketing up the world rankings the next time they are published.
Football Fever with Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
While this podcast takes a halftime break, let's talk about The Greatest Goal, a crowdfunding campaign leaving a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-hosts of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023 by asking fans to donate a native tree. Each native tree costs just $10, and whether you donate one or many, you'll be contributing to amazing restoration projects across Aotearoa. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal. Looks like we're ready to kick off the second half.
We are indeed, where we go to Sydney in front of 75,000 fans. Australia 2, Denmark 0. Australia into the quarterfinals. Caitlin Ford and Hayley Raso with the goals. This always felt comfortable for the Matildas, apart from maybe the first 5 or 10 minutes when the Danes came out, pretty aggressively. I always thought Australia were going to win this game.
Yeah, I did as well, and the possession was pretty even for these two teams. I'm just watching the replay now on the screen above me in the studio. But yeah, it was just so good. You could kind of feed off that crowd in Australia there, and they've got the home advantage, and you just can't deny that. And you can't deny it against any opponent they're going to have. They're looking really good, Australia.
This whole nation has got behind them. I was so jealous watching it. And I'm delighted for Australia and for the Matildas, but I was just thinking, imagine if that was us, imagine if the football ferns were filling up Eden Park and getting to a quarter final, and then we'd, be looking forward all week to who they were playing and all that sort of thing. But anyway, that's probably a secondary issue. Mary Fowler's pass for the first goal, that Caitlin Ford finished, through the legs of the Danish keeper. Just sublime. I think Emily Van Egmond is a huge part of this Matilda side. She's playing a bit further up the pitch now. I think Denmark, like I say, it's a pretty meek exit. Apart from Pernilla Harder, they don't have a lot, right? She's by far their best player.
No, yeah, and I think I was talking to someone that Australia were really lucky in their round of 16 match. I think they had one of the easier teams. Denmark weren't that threatening in their group stage. They didn't look, amazing. So, yeah, Australia were, good to have an easier match, but they did the job and they performed exceptional. And touching on Mary Fowler and Van Egmond as well, both didn't start the first two games, I believe, and have come in as a replacement of Sam Kerr and other players and done exceptional. Mary Fowler is just an amazing player to watch, and she's only 20 or 21 or something like that. And that pass she sent up to Caitlin Ford was just incredible. So, yeah, as I've said, Australia don't necessarily need Sam Kerr. They need to know that they're confident. They're a good team, and they should be confident on that, because they can certainly go and win this tournament.
Well, speaking of Sam Kerr, I think the biggest cheer of the night was when she came on in the 80th minute. She'd been warming up for about 10 minutes. Every time the cameras flashed onto her on the big screen, there were just, roars of approval. It was funny, isn't it? Because they didn't really need her. They were 2-0 ahead and cruising. But I don't mind it as a bit of a flex, putting Sam Kerr on and telling whoever's next, and maybe after that, hey, we've got something here, she's good to go.
And that's exactly it. They were giving her first World Cup run, getting rid of any nerves. Not that I think she's probably got any at her caliber, but yeah, it was a bit of a statement that she's back and she's ready to go. So it will be really interesting to see whether she starts the next game. I would say she probably will, depending on their opponent, which we'll find out tonight. But I really like this Australian side, and I hate backing Australians in sport, but for some reason I've got a soft spot for these players, and I don't know if it's because I watched the Matildas documentary on Disney Plus before the tournament starts, which I highly recommend for anyone keen to get some more football fix. But yeah, I really like this team to go on and win it, and I was talking to quite a few American fans, and they're also going on to their next favourite team now is Australia, and they really like the look of them too.
Good stuff. Tony Gustafsson, their coach, said it was a mature performance from his side.
Denmark comes out and surprised us. Did not shy away from the occasion. I think we struggled first 50 minutes. But in tournament football, I've said it before, you need to play the game right in front of you and find ways to win.
And they found a way to win. They'll play the winner, as you say, Bonnie, of France, Morocco. And we could be on course for an Australia-England semi-final back in Sydney next Wednesday night. Can you imagine it?
My goodness. That'd be the game, I reckon, of the tournament, more so than USA-Sweden, more so than USA-Netherlands. So that'd be exciting.
Football Fever with Jason Pine and Bonnie Jansen with Trees That Count. Donate a native tree and help us score the greatest goal.
So quick look ahead to tonight's last two round of 16 ties. Melbourne, 8 o'clock. Colombia, who topped Group H, up against Jamaica, who was second in Group F but didn't concede a goal. The winner of this game plays England. I'd quite like to see Jamaica win this.
I would as well, and nothing's guaranteed for Colombia, who are certainly the higher ranked team, but they're not, a top 10 team. They're not necessarily as intimidating as, an England or a France or a Australia, even for that matter. So Jamaica have a real shot, and how cool would it be to see a team like that reach a quarter-final?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, their defence has been, as I say, brilliant. Haven't let any in yet, so I get the feeling they'll set up that way against Colombia. Colombia, let's not forget, lost their last game. Morocco beat them 1-0 in their final group match, so it's not as though they're coming in on a bit of a heater. That's 8 o'clock in Melbourne, 11 o'clock in Adelaide. France, who topped Group F and went through unbeaten, up against Morocco, who, no one picked them to be here when they lost 6-0 to Germany first up, but beating Colombia, they're through. France, though, it feels like France, doesn't it? But then we've said that a few times at this tournament about teams, haven't we?
Exactly. We can get another upset even in the round of 16 where it means a little bit more. I'd love to see Morocco go through. I think there's 72 or something like that in the world, and imagine that, having Morocco in the quarterfinals. It would just be huge for their nation. But at the same time, I would love to see a Australian-France quarterfinal.
Absolutely. That is, yeah. So Australia could play France in the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
England in the semi-final, and then anyone who comes through on the other side of the stacked draw on the other side in a fight. I know Australian fans are starting to dream, and there's a lot of water to flow under the bridge before that happens, but we've got a huge week and a half or so left at this tournament. Who knows the storylines that are going to be written, Bonnie?
No, exactly. And, while I'm upset the pool play's done and we have less matches, going on to talk about, these are the most exciting games, and these are the ones you look forward to at the World Cup. And we've already seen that the last two nights. So we've got a lot still to come, and it's very exciting. Very exciting indeed. Thanks, Bonnie, as always. Thank you for listening in. We'll have a fresh episode of Football Fever dropping into your podcast feed around about the same time tomorrow, breaking down the final two round of 16 ties. Just a reminder, tonight in Melbourne at 8, Colombia, Jamaica, and in Adelaide from 11, France against Morocco. Thanks for tuning in and listening to this latest episode of Football Fever. Have an excellent day. In this post-match review, let's score the greatest goal by donating a native tree to leave a legacy for Aotearoa New Zealand as co-hosts of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023. Visit treesthatcount.co.nz to donate a native tree for a brighter future.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.